Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is David Novak. My last video was a fireside chat with the title of something like Electoral Anticipations. We are in a brief window of time, several days now, before the U.S. presidential contest, among other contests, will be decided. And it is a time of some anxiety here. Every time that this runs around, at least in the bulk of the years of my adulthood, it has been fraught. Years ago, every contest did not seem like potentially the end of the world, but it seems more and more so. And you also have the underlying condition that these contests, they are closely decided, partly because the electoral system is skewed in one particular direction, but they are also so close because a lot of our citizenry, somebody called them garbage. I don't care to use that phrase. Somebody else some time ago called them a basket full of deplorables. I also don't care to talk that way. But it occurs to me that the citizenry of this country is in large part, and not even limiting it to that particular group of people so designated, but this populace, this citizenry, is oftentimes very much less than it could be or should be. I was thinking about the Walt Whitman quote, something to the effect that a great poet needs a great audience. I'm not really sure how true that is. I think a poet like Walt Whitman was definitely searching for that great audience, and he found it. But I think a democracy needs a better citizenry than we have, to be sure. I did not mean to go off on this digression, but in that video, I showed this book, Bestial Ballads, and I said I didn't know if it was written in 2002 or 2003. It was copywritten or copyrighted in 2003. And for that video, I read my poem, Lincoln in the Rain. I thought that happens to be the second poem in the book, and I thought I would read you the first poem in the book. It starts out with a poem, The Death of Kafka. Shy of his birthday by a moon, at nearly 41, Franz Kafka died, which seemed too soon for his soul to be gone. Yet that was 1924, as history supply the details, such a good year for a Czech-born Jew to die. For Kafka died as though the first of the extermination campaign against the Jews rehearsed the plight to blight his nation. For, oh, so clearly he foresaw the future's machinations. He wasted thin, became like straw in sympathy's prorations. Kafka foresaw the ugliness that would result in Hitler's desultory dynamic mess, belittled and belittlers, final solution for the Jews, the which he must disdain, and lodge protest, thereby he choose the purest path, is pain. Of course, his sisters, I believe, died in the concentration camps. His parents may have died before. And he would have gone, no doubt, had he lived. Any reader of his novel, The Trial, and that closing scene knows how much he foresaw. I read earlier in the year his novel America, and I think I talked a little bit about some of his prescience. If I can think of it, I'll put a link to that video in the description box. So he has been on my mind. I realized he died in, I think, June of 1924. So it has been more than 100 years since his passing. And I do sometimes think of the death scene. I'm sure this is not the first place that I encountered it, but it was, I just want to show this. It says 907, so I'm guessing I bought this book in 2007 for $4 at Half Price Books. It was a really good find, and of course I read it immediately, I'm sure. And his friend Max Brod, to whom we owe the salvaging of his oeuvre. Kafka wanted him to burn all of his writings, and Brod did not do so. Of course, Brod believes that Kafka knew he would not do so. I think Brod even says at one time he told Kafka, "I will refuse to carry out your instructions." And good that he refused. But I will read you about a page talking about his final days. On Monday, and apparently also on Tuesday morning, which, however, I hardly believe, Franz was working on the first proofs, which had arrived shortly before, of his last book, A Hunger Artist. He gave orders for changing the order of the stories, showed some temper with the publisher, who had not paid sufficient care to this or that instruction. Dora once said very rightly, really, he demanded a great deal of respect towards himself. If one met him with due respect, everything was all right, and he didn't care a thing about formalities. But if one didn't, he was very annoyed. At midnight, he fell asleep. At 4 o'clock in the morning, Klopstock was called into the room by Dora because Franz is breathing badly. Klopstock recognized the danger and woke the doctor, who gave him a camphor injection. Then began the fight for morphine. Franz said to Klopstock, "You have always been promising it me for 4 years. You are torturing me. You have always been torturing me. I am not talking to you anymore. I shall die like that." He was given 2 injections. After the second, he said, "Don't cheat me. You are giving me an antidote." Then the words I mentioned before, "Kill me, or else you are a murderer." They gave him Pantopon. He was very happy about that. "That's good, but more, it isn't helping." Then he went slowly to sleep. His last words were about his sister Ellie. Klopstock was holding his head. Kafka, who was always terribly afraid he might infect someone, said, imagining it was his sister he saw instead of his doctor friend, "Go away, Ellie, not so near, not so near." And as Klopstock moved away a little, he was satisfied and said, "Yes, like that. It's all right, like that." Before this last scene, He made a brusque gesture of dismissal to the nurse. So brusque as he never was ordinarily, Klopstock told me. Then, with all his strength, he tore off his ice pack and threw it on the floor. Don't torture me any more. Why prolong the agony? As Klopstock moved away from the bed to clean some part of the syringe, Franz said, Don't leave me. His friend answered, But I am not leaving you. Franz answered in a deep voice, But I am leaving you. I have misremembered those words as his final words, but they remain with me. No, but I am leaving you. I feel that I'm not sure where things are going with this. As I say, the results of the forthcoming elections or the result of the presidential one in particular is meaningful and important. But there are a lot of underlying factors which indicate or intimate future events which we cannot foresee in detail, but which may give the soul cause to shudder, to use an image from Martin Buber. I don't think that Martin Buber would have been too happy with the way the world has moved on. I don't know how hopeful he was. I've read a fair amount of his writings, but I know nothing personally about the man. I would like to. He certainly was involved in the spiritual underlay to human life. And that, I think, was one of the first draws of his work to me, or for me. I think he knew Kafka a little bit as well, and he wrote about Kafka, but I've forgotten all of that. Of course, Kafka is the great figure. His writing endures. And so I think of him. Don't leave me, he said. And the friend said, but I'm not leaving you. And then Kafka said, no, but I am leaving you. So I don't know what the future status will be of this channel. I feel possibly like BookTube is leaving me. I feel changes coming on. I have no plans to shut down the channel, but I've talked about that before, that I could see doing it with the election or after the election or around the 6th of January, the anniversary of the insurrection, the attempted coup. Americans seem to have very poor memories. it is hard to see how this contest could be so close. But of course, poets are actively involved in keeping memories alive, or creating memories even. You could go so far in the way that, say, the Trojan War was created by Homer. There may well be some kind of a factual basis for such a war. It's possible. In that video, I think I said that the American mythology needs to be changed, and I've been thinking about possibly reading something from Longfellow. Most of his poems are on this channel somewhere, the shorter ones, but I never did The Courtship of Miles Standish, and I never did Evangeline. His both great poems, Evangeline probably the greater of the two, but the Courtship, I know, the Courtship really is a piece, or presents a piece of Americana, which I would like to reinvestigate. I haven't read it probably in 20 years, if not more than that. I think this book was also bought around that time. I don't know, possibly before that. It must be before that, actually, but I don't know. Yeah, there's no indication here. Could it have been as early as, well, who knows? And so I've thought about revisiting that poem, The Courtship of Miles Standish. It's a part of our national mythology. It's a great poem, and I don't know how much it is the sort of thing that we want to hold on to anymore. And so I would just like to read that, and might as well do it before the camera. So I'm considering that as my next video. Anyhow, I've meandered long enough, so I thought I would share with you a little bit about Franz Kafka's final days. Max Brod gets criticized sometimes for presenting Kafka in such a light so as to make Max appear better than he was. The typical sort of complaints. It's a worthwhile biography. I will leave this video here with the cat behind the camera. Thank you very much for stopping by my channel.